Curt Gowdy Jr. at the time was producing ABC Horse Racing, and leading up to that Triple Crown I had mentioned, he comes to me on one of our setup days, he says, come with me. The track was doing preliminary racing at Aqueduct. He says, come with me. We walked down to the rail and stood by the start gate on the rail. So I want you to listen for a minute. What do you hear? And you hear the horses whinnying and the jockeys giving them a little bit of a whip to get them into the start gate. And there's a lot of discussion going on between the assistant starters and the starter. And then, of course, when he hits the bell, when they're all in place, and he hits the gates fly open on this steel gate, and the fire gong goes off as the horses take off for the trace. Stood there, and he said, did you hear all of that? I said, yes. I never hear that on television, and I want to. Okay. Turns out start gates are all made in France, and there were 14 stalls on the main gates, 6 stalls on the auxiliary gates. Bottom line is I wound up getting an education and educating myself. We built a harness. I measured the start gate, and they're all identical, by the way. The dimensions are identical no matter where you go in the country. I built a harness, audio harness, and I broke out individual XLRs at every other gate. Of the 14 gates, there's a common hinge for this gate and this gate. There's a common hinge for these 2 gates. Of the 14 gates, I broke out 7 individual XLRs for lavalier microphones that I gaffer taped to the superstructure of this thing. And also, I mic'd the bell. All of that came back wide-corded to a M67 Shure mixer that was battery-operated, the output of which went into a wireless microphone. Because the start gate can't be wired. The horses can't get spooked by looking at any of this. So I designed this entire harness, and it got to the point where you would hear the hinges creaking on these wireless, on these lavalier microphones, all pre-mixed, by the way, all preset. And it would roll around. And when they got it in place for the race that we did, you would hear these hinges creaking and the horses whinnying, and you heard every single sound of the start gate. Never existed before. I designed that for Curt Gowdy Jr. He also dragged me to the National Figure Skating Championships. He said, come with me. We walked down to the ice during the practice session. Listen closely. In figure skating, they refer to it as cutting an edge, that you actually hear the blades of the skates cut the ice. He says, I never hear that at home. There was a new technology that had been developed by Crown called PZMs, pressure zone microphones. And if you look at a skating rink, it's really a hockey rink. And in the corners, you've got the slashes in the corners. Well, I looked at those boards and I said, you know what? That's parabolic in nature. I went down to Radio Shack and I bought 6 Radio Shack, not Crowns because we couldn't afford them at the time, 6 Radio Shack PZMs. I had them painted the exact same color as the boards, and then double-face taped them to the boards in the corners, effectively creating parabolic reflectors of the boards. And we went on the first National Figure Skating Championship, going to the Olympics, by the way, that year. Went on the National Figure Skating Championships, and around the second pair that came out, Curt asked me for less ice noise. I was burying the announcers. So those are some of the highlights.